All right, when you've set up a trust, when you've set up a revocable living trust, a family wealth trust, some sort of trust as part of your estate plan, which most of our clients do, they've always got to name what's called a successor trustee, meaning that's somebody who's typically going to serve as the trustee after they're passed away. So example being, let's say that you want to leave money to your children. One of the things that they might have to do is they might have to sell the real estate that you owned in order to split the money between the kids. Well, that person in charge of selling the real estate, that person in charge of doing those things, we would call that person the successor trustee. Now, a lot of times families have a hard time figuring out who they want to name as trustee, right? For a variety of reasons. Typically, it's because they want to be quote unquote fair. And so they want to name both children or all three children. And in some circumstances that might make sense, but typically I'm gonna say, I don't think so, because if you have some sort of gridlock or they can't agree, and so parents a lot of times have a hard time deciding who they want to serve as trustee. And so one of the things we might suggest is using a professional trustee. Now, a professional trustee is kind of what it sounds like. It's someone who that is their job. This is what they do. This is what they get paid to do, is they get paid to be a professional trustee. And there's pros and cons to that, right? I think the main con is there's going to be a fee for it, right? So that's going to eat into the estate assets. Now, you are not going to be paying this person while you're alive. Typically, they're going to be paid from the estate assets after you pass away, and they now become the trustee, right? It's typically the way it works. The benefit is there's a couple different benefits. Number one, they've got the experience, right? So again, a lot of times for family members, this is a difficult job. You're dealing with emotions, you're dealing with mom and dad or someone who's just passed away, so they've got a lot going on anyways. And they're not really sure what to do. Again, it could be very simple as far as just selling real estate, liquidating bank accounts, but there's other things that are going to have to be done. Filing accountings, preparing accountings, making sure everyone kind of knows what's going on. So that's something that the experience is a huge piece of it. Number two is objectivity, right? So they don't have any skin in the game, as it were, right? They just want to administer the trust the way that you instruct them to do it. Whereas maybe a sibling, a child or someone, they might be a little less objective. They might feel that it's unfair that one sibling is getting more than the other. Maybe they took care of the parent more than the other. They think whatever it is. So there is a lot more subjectivity in this, whereas a professional trustee is going to be a lot more objective. Number three, they're not going to have a conflict of interest, right? Well, they wouldn't have even, accepted the role if they even thought there was a conflict of interest. But, maybe one of the persons that you've named as trustee, they have a conflict in the asset that you're leaving them, right? Maybe it's a piece of real estate and they have a vested interest in it, or maybe they're a part owner in the business that you're leaving them. So there's an inherent conflict of interest, whereas a professional trustee is really not going to have that. And lastly, and maybe most importantly, they actually want to serve in this role, right? The professional trustee, they're getting paid to do it. It's their job, so this is something that they actually want to do. Whereas I see all the time, parents are so concerned, hey, we want both of our kids to do this, it's going to be fair. But when the time comes, the kids really don't want to do it. The kids have busy lives, they've got stuff going on. This is just an added stress. So a couple things to consider. I know a lot of times parents just want their kids to do it, and that's probably very typical for most people, but it might be at least worth having a conversation and looking into possibly using a professional trustee as your successor trustee.